So I have a question for you guys. When it comes to mowers, what is better than having a Grasshopper mower? I will pause and wait while you scratch your head and try to figure out the answer. If you know me, then you know there's not really an answer. However, how about 2 front mount diesel Grasshoppers? This thing's a monster. So on my right, this is my mower. This is a 2001 Grasshopper 721 D2. It's got a 61-inch deck out front and a Kubota 3-cylinder diesel in the rear. Here on my left is my buddy Chris's 928D. I believe this is a 2003. 72-inch deck out front, Kubota 3-cylinder diesel on the rear. The amount of grass that these two machines can mow is mind-blowing. When we mow together, we mow 11 feet at a time. Now I understand a lot of commercial zero turns are this big, can mow that amount of grass, but these front decks contour the ground. These are some serious mowing machines. And like I said, they are old. 2001, I believe 2003. This one has about 1,500 hours on it. The hours on this one, kind of unknown. When Chris bought this thing about 8 or 9 years ago, I think the hour meter already had died at 2,500 hours. He's put probably multiple hundreds of hours on it since he's had it. Still an absolute unit. These mowers are built for work and built for life. Nearly every piece on these machines are replaceable if needed, and with the diesel power plant in the rear, you got plenty of longevity. But being over 20 years old, there are certainly items to fix, and one thing I'm going to address in this video is the front deck on this 928D. Out here, we have so much to mow, and we often let it go to the point where you probably should use a bush hog. We typically just power through it with the Grasshoppers. Chris was telling me his 928 doesn't seem to be cutting and discharging grass quite like my 721 does, and I told him, I bet I know what's going on. I told him, I bet your front belts and springs and rear belts and springs need replaced. I did that to mine about a year or two ago. What a world of difference. And so I got a whole host of parts over at my house. I'm gonna take the hopper over there, kind of like the Grinch. I'm gonna take it up there, fix it there, and bring it back here. But I wanna give a shout out and big thanks to the sponsor of today's video, the Mower Shop out in Fort Smith, Arkansas. These guys right here. Man, they got every part you could ever need for your Grasshopper. And that's where everything you see in this video has come from. And so before I get into the maintenance aspect, I do want to run this thing. I've never run a 928, and honestly, this machine right here, or a 930D, is the mower I want. Love this thing. I will never get rid of it. This will probably be the mower for my son one day, but I want a big boy mower like this. Yeah, because that one's not. But you know what I'm saying. This massive 72-inch deck out front, huge diesel power plant, that one feels like a mower. This one kind of feels like a tractor. So if anyone out there is close to Indiana and has a nice 928D with a 72-inch deck, or really a 930D with a 72-inch deck for sale, find my email on here and reach out. Want one of these. But real quick, look at the difference in size of the casters. Same with the deck. I mean, look how beefy this thing is. All right, let's run these machines a little bit. I'm gonna go out here to some of this thicker stuff that just been bush hogged. This has been finish mowed a fair amount. Out there, it just got bush hogged a week or so ago. It's a lot heavier and thicker out there. We're gonna run the 721 through it and then the 928 and see if I can't replicate what Chris was talking about. I know he hasn't done all this maintenance before, and so whether you can feel it, seat of the pants or not, it's gonna make a huge difference. Oh yeah, this over here, finish mode. This over here, that's some riffraff. And I'm gonna run down the windrows too, so we're picking up more material so we can really get a sense of how different these might be cutting right now. Doing a pretty nice job. Let me bring you along. I tell you, I've always been impressed with this mower, especially after I rebuilt the deck, if you want to call it that, you know, new belts and springs and whatnot. Let's see how the 928 does. Honestly, I'm excited to kind of spend some time running this thing and test driving it, if you will, to make sure it's what I want. I mean, I've seen it in action. I know it's pretty awesome, but we'll see. Another thing I love about this old girl is the massive fuel tank. They're both already diesel, so the fuel goes a long way. But with that thing, you're gonna get tired before the machine needs refueled. tell you what, these things are brutes. This one is noticeably bigger and heavier, but that doesn't make me like this one really any less. But I can see what Chris means though. This stuff here is pretty thick, but it's fairly dry despite all the rain we've had. You know, that's mostly dried out material on top. I could kind of feel it slowing down a little bit. All right, let's take this back to the North Pole. There's one. Let's go get the noisy one. All right, let's get started. Although I should probably get the parts first. I think they're at the house. Hold on. It's not working. Oh, there it goes. Haha. Nice. You guys ever seen Mickey Mouse burn out with the Defender? All right, let's get to it. We'll talk a little bit about similarities and differences as we work through here, but I'm not gonna get in my spiel about why these things are so awesome. There's a video out there about that. This is about how to maintain these things and what you can do to keep them going. Chris already did me a solid and unbolted these. He knew I was gonna be doing this, so thank you, Chris. So his just, those just pop off so I can walk on them later. So the main thing we're doing up front on this is swapping out this spring and his belt. We're gonna swap those two, change the blades, moving to a more aggressive blade. And we're gonna swap the two clutch belts back here, and there's a spring somewhere. We'll find it when we need to change it. Oh, it's buried down there. Looks fun. Oh, I know what those are. Those are muffler bolts. What do you think? Did I put it back on? My daughter would be happy. Clutch belts for the rear. A few Mower Shop stickers. We'll slap one of them on his mower somewhere. He'll appreciate that. That's all hardware. That's for one of the fixes on mine. Got my spring there for the mower. Oh yeah, here are the pillow block bearings. So these guys, I actually just replaced these on mine. I'm not gonna do Chris that big of a solid. I'm gonna give him these and let him replace them. But let me show you where they go. So up under the footrest here is where the PTO comes out, and just on the other side, if you unclip this PTO, is where the pillow block bearing lives on the front. And then on the rear, it sits right down in there at the base where the clutch engages the PTO. He can replace those. That sounds like a job he'd love to do. I'm not doing that. I replaced my front one here a while ago. It's so much easier if you take the deck off, and I can take this one off in about 3 minutes. I'm not 100% sure how you do this one, so there you go, buddy. The mower belt itself, this thing's like 7 feet long. I mean, I guess it makes sense when you have a 6-foot mower deck, but then we have the extreme high lift blades. Check these babies out. Look at the notch on that, the lift, whatever you want to call it. Nasty. So like I said, these are the extreme high lift blades, and I believe he said he has the high lift on there, which is like a level below these. We'll compare the lift on the two here in a minute, but these are made for extreme conditions. Very tall, lush grass. I think it makes a pretty good cut, but they advertise them as being a little bit rougher cut. So if you're working on a golf course, you probably don't want these. I run these all the time just because I love letting stuff get really tall and then mow it down. Honestly, to me, mowing's a waste of time. It's just gonna grow again later. So why not use something like this? I will tell you, the discharge on the deck from these is insane. Oh, he's a liar. Looks like he already has extreme high lift on here. I also see a massive chunk out of one though, so we'll definitely take the new blades. So I just pulled the serial number off of this. This is a 2002, not a 2003. That's 2001. I don't believe this deck actually flips up. I was thinking that it does if you had a manual, like a jack kit with it. It might be a little bit later models. This one does flip up. I will show you that here in a little bit. Still plenty of clearance to get to the blades. Shouldn't be a big deal. Probably pull it in there though. What up, Charlie? So we're gonna start here in the front end. I'll swap the blades first, then the belt, and then from there it's just those belts in the back. Now there's spring, and I guess the spring up front. I mentioned the deck on this mower does not flip up. If you've seen it on my 721, you know how awesome and convenient it is to have that feature. However, it's still not that big of a deal on a Grasshopper because these front decks move independently of the tractor. So you can put a floor jack up front and this thing will just pivot right here and the tractor itself will not move. Watch this. Man, that's quite annoying. So get this thing all the way up. Throw these jack stands under here, lower it down. All right, now check it out. We got the front end about a foot off the ground. If we come over here, to the mower side, tires still all the way on the ground. You can see that the deck just pivots independently of the whole tractor. You're not having to pick the whole machine up. Because if you can get enough clearance to get a gun under here, then life is a whole lot better. Blades don't look terrible. There's a good amount of one missing there. Pretty well clean. Use a little scraping on that far side over there. You can see just some of the carnage this thing's been through and beat up. I mean, this is heavy gauge steel, but this mower's seen some stuff. I don't know what he hit, but that was pretty loud. Honestly, blades don't look that bad overall. I'm gonna keep an old spare set. All right, got the blades swapped over. I didn't really video that because I thought you guys probably didn't want to see me rolling around on the ground. Just putting bolts through blades. Pretty easy. Probably gonna take a picture of this so I remember how this belt loops on there. It wasn't that hard to undo. It's not noticeably stretched just to the naked eye, but I bet the tension's reduced quite a bit. One thing I want to say about, again, the Mower Shop and their parts department, this is kind of mind-blowing. I actually just called them like half an hour ago to verify this. They are, other than Grasshopper Mowers themselves, like the actual manufacturer, they are the only dealer who is authorized by Grasshopper to sell OEM parts online. Now, it's not to say that other people are skirting the system, and my guess is if you're trying to buy parts online and you want OEM specific Grasshopper parts and you're not buying them from Grasshopper themselves or the Mower Shop, they're likely knockoffs. That's a big deal. Sometimes OEM isn't always the best because the equipment isn't of a high quality, but with these things, I don't want anything but OEM. I made that mistake years ago when I first got it. I put some non-OEM parts on this thing and this mower just destroyed them. So I'll never make that mistake again. So yeah, if you're buying parts for your Grasshopper, either Grasshopper Mowers directly or the Mower Shop, you know what, let's just get it out of here. Can't be that, I'm not that dumb, am I? No one answered that in the comments. I only had to consult my picture for like 2 seconds. All right, I think other than adding tension back to it, got it. Like, talk about forethought, you know? They have just this little tiny plastic wearable bushing that goes in this giant tensioning bar so that you can replace this 25-cent piece instead of letting it wear through the metal on here. Love that. If I can just turn it, it needs to be replaced. I don't have one right now though. Okay. Ooh, baby. Let's lower the deck. That'll probably help me. There you go. You wanna know how to lower a deck on a Grasshopper? Right now, I gotta get this pen out of here. There we go. A whole lot more tension than before. I don't know what the spec says about how much, like how far the coil should be open. I think what I'm gonna do right now is just leave it as is and run it. But there's noticeably more room between each one of these coils than before. At least I think so. All right, the front is good. I think he just greased everything recently this spring, so I'm not worried about greasing things. These rear belts are a little tough to get to and see. I'll probably take this shroud off right here. The pair of belts tucked down here, and the spring is also right up under here. If I recall, similar to mine, you gotta take like this shroud off, and this piece here that kind of holds the PTO, gives the PTO a place to kick against whenever it starts up. So I'm not quite done, but wanted to catch you guys up. I did not have to take this shroud off. I kind of forgot how easy it is to work on these things. I didn't look at any manuals or tutorials, just kind of started investigating and wrenching on stuff. It's so easy. There's a bolt over here that holds a bracket for the tensioner for the spring. And look at, 20 plus years of wear on this right here. Probably got to replace that or tack weld that here at some point before it wears through when you're mowing one day. What's wild though is you could go onto the Mower Shop's website right now and find this thing. But once you pull the spring, the idler then moves real easy. Just have to undo the little thing like I said and slide the belts on. There's the old ones. Button her up and maybe clean this thing up a little bit. All right, so things are mostly back together. I'm gonna give the blades a test before I put that cowling back on, plus the bolts are in Chris's barn. Setting that spring back here was fun, let me tell you. It was much tighter than the old one. The old one has gaps in it. Where'd it go? You can see like daylight through that one when it's resting. Yeah, Shouldn't compress like that. So yeah, that was definitely worn. But I think I'm gonna save mowing for maybe tomorrow. I might actually get this thing out and just blow it off with a leaf blower. Maybe give it a power wash a little bit. Not sure what he does with this thing. I will say he did change the oil here in April of 26, but I wonder if he had a stroke or he was running low on funds, because in April of 25 is when he changed the fuel filter, so we need to have talk. So what I was doing with Chris's mower was not hard when it came to the deck, but this here is next level. And again, this is not new by any means. Boom. How about that? Isn't that incredible? There you go. Change blades, scrape it, whatever you want to do. This isn't hard, but man, power lift would be crazy. And mowing some heavy wet stuff. So I'm curious, do any of you remember this scene from Too Fast, Too Furious? Ooh, 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 ooh. How we looking? Gave them both a little spritz last night. Even though they're brown and cream, when you clean them up, noticeably different. All right, let's go see if old big girl cuts grass better. Got them all cleaned up and all badged up too. Slapped a couple of these bad boys on here. I truly still don't know if I'm gonna put the muffler back on here. This thing sounds so nasty. I love it. This one's kind of tame for as big of a motor as it is. This one's just raw dogging it. I love it. Had a busy morning. Let's get some seat time in here and cut some grass. All right, we are back where we started out here in this field. I'm going to continue my test drive of the 928D here and see if our repairs made a difference. New deck belt, new clutch belts, new springs, new blades. I left the pillow block bearings for Chris because that seemed like a whole lot of labor. But after all that, it cannot be worse. I guarantee you that. I'm going to leave the 721D sitting here for a minute while she's all sparkly and clean. I got to get me one of these big ones though. I gotta see what Chris says and what he thinks, but man, this thing sure feels like it's better. It is not bogging down, and the amount of material coming out of that discharge, it is gnarly. I would say it's absolutely better. So if you have a Grasshopper and you feel like it's not cutting grass just quite the way it used to, and it's an older machine, replace your belts and your springs. It makes a huge difference. About a year and a half ago, I did it to my 721D. It was an extreme case. My springs were really bad. The belt was completely worn. And once I made those changes, I went from being able to go through, 8 to 10 inch tall grass and it kind of getting through okay, to hitting 18, 24 inch tall grass and it not skipping a beat. And if you're not a Grasshopper fan and you think that Dixie's better or Skag or X-Mark, etc., and you think I'm showing off out here, this is just some test work. If you want me to show off, I'll find some 3-foot tall wet grass and spew black smoke while I'm knocking it down. Seems like a good video idea to me. But remember, if you do have a Grasshopper and you're looking for repair parts, check out the Mower Shop. Their link is going to be down below. As I mentioned before, if you're buying something online and you're expecting it to be OEM Grasshopper, if it does not come from Grasshopper itself or the Mower Shop, 95% of the time, it's likely going to be a knockoff. And with machines that are of this quality, you don't want knockoff. Not to mention their website's so easy to use. They have all the parts diagrams where you can just zero in and click and add to cart. It's like buying on Amazon. All right, well, I have Chris's 928D. I'm going to continue my test drive and keep mowing all the grass out here. Likely, I'm just going to go mow all my stuff and then return his mower all dirty and keep mine ready for the state fair, nice and sparkly. So if you would, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care. I think I might delete his muffler while he's gone. What do you think? Good idea?